Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pondering God. My name is Ron Bay Jr. And today's episode is titled, What's the Problem? There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. Stephen Stills. When Stephen Stills wrote For What It's Worth, while a member of the group Buffalo Springfield, he is referring to the civil unrest during the tumultuous 1960s. We have a new civil unrest running rampant through our culture today, nearly 60 years later. And the something happening here couldn't be more clear. What with a camera and video recorder in everyone's hands. The drugs may be different, but the results are similar, albeit they've escalated. We see violence, riots, burnings, looting, carjackings, yelling and screaming at the opposition to drown out their voices. We see flash mobs looting stores and gangs of teens playing the knockout game. The fact they call it a game speaks volumes. We see teenagers and even preteens committing murders and mass shootings. We see teens and young adults curled up on the ground in the fetal position because they've been triggered and traumatized by something someone said. Although we can clearly see the results of this unrest, what is the reason? Why the unrest? In the wealthiest country on the planet? Why are these things happening? What is causing all this aberrant, antisocial behavior? Recently, I spoke with a man who works with school-age kids on a daily basis. He told me that he'd received phone calls from 3 different parents who told him their children would not be attending this week due to being in the psych ward at the local hospital. I asked him, "What's the problem?" His response was typical. He said it was a mental health problem. But is it? Coincidentally or not, this is a town that 25 years ago banned Bible studies in their local libraries, while at the same time welcomed Satan groups to meet. I said I had a different take. Although mental health certainly is one aspect of this anomaly, I told him I thought it might be a deeper problem. Let's look at some events in the news recently and in the not so distant past. In 2019, a 16 and 18-year-old killed 1 and wounded 8 in a Colorado school. The 16-year-old imagined herself a boy, transgender. Examining her vehicle, authorities found handwritten graffiti of the number 666 and a pentagram. An illegal drug, cocaine, was also involved in the equation. If someone believes they are something they aren't or cannot ever be, and then enter a school and wound and kill innocent people, is it a mental problem or a spiritual one? This week, a headline from an event held at the University of Albany: Farrell College students destroy a Bible at a TPUSA event. It seems that a group of students, behaving like animals, tried to shout a conservative speaker off the stage, not willing to allow him to speak about free speech. Obviously, they missed the irony. Oh, and they tore up an innocent, unsuspecting Bible, this not being insignificant in my view. Here's a headline this week regarding a similar incident at another school. Trans activist violently assaults Riley Gaines at SFSU speech. It seems a female swimmer, speaking out against men competing with women, sent a man who pretends to be a woman into a violent frenzy. Gets confusing, doesn't it? From an arrest in Florida, a 13-year-old boy on psychotropic drugs was arrested for making his evil, murderous intentions known. Here are his words: "I want to shoot up the school. If I get a gun, I'm going to shoot up humans." Laugh out loud. "I always keep a knife on me, so maybe I'll just stab people. I don't know. Nah, if I do kill people, I'll just kill myself." Also this week, deputies arrested a 12-year-old and 16-year-old on first-degree murder charges. I leave their names out intentionally. A 12-year-old committing murder, once unheard of, but now more the norm. At 12, I was soaping the windows of cars in a parking lot, and at 16, I was toilet papering the popular girls' houses. Finally, from last week, a 28-year-old woman, imagining herself to be a man, went into a Christian grade school, Covenant School in Nashville, and murdered 3 9-year-old students and 3 teachers. She told her friend this was the only way she could be seen. Who feels the need to be seen so much that they would commit a mass murder? What creates such a void in someone's life? I could go on and fill page after page with stories of violence on campus, violence on the streets, murder, beatings, rantings and ravings full of hate-filled rhetoric, etc. Many of these events have commonalities: drug use, either illegal or prescribed, with the assailants from under 25 years of age to as young as 12. Anger with parents, anger with authority, confusion about their sexuality, self-harm, cutting, mutilation of their bodies, and self-hatred. I pulled this quote from an article. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among people ages 15 to 24 in the United States. Nearly 20% of high school students report serious thoughts of suicide, and 9% have made an attempt to take their lives, according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Interestingly, some of the perpetrators of the violence cited above were under psychiatric care and were prescribed drugs to help them cope. Does mental illness explain what is going on in our culture? Can mental health experts solve it? Can mental health give a person's life meaning? Stephen Stills also wrote in the same song, "Paranoia strikes deep, into your life it will creep." But what causes it? What causes someone to want to harm themselves or others? What's the problem? Before I get to where I'm going with my thoughts, a recent survey found that only 39% of Americans found religion is very important in their lives, down from 62% who said faith was very important to them 25 years ago. Going back even further, U.S. church membership was 73% when Gallup first measured it in 1937. You may have caught on by now that I think the problem lies elsewhere. I believe we have a spiritual problem in our culture. The behaviors I see, some of them described above, in greater numbers every day, remind me of a story from the Bible about a demon-possessed man and Jesus. In Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 20, and in Luke chapter 8, verses 26 through 39, the story is told about the Gerasene demoniac. I won't retell the full account from Scripture, but I will share some key observations. When Jesus' boat landed in the country of the Gerasenes, Mark described what Jesus encountered. And when he come out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him, and he had his dwelling among the tombs. And no one was able to bind him anymore, even with a chain, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. And constantly, night and day, among the tombs and in the mountains, he was crying out and gashing himself with stones. So, a man was possessed by an evil spirit, and because of his antisocial behavior, he lived in his parents' basement, and constantly, day and night, he cried out and raged against the world on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook, while repeatedly cutting himself with razor blades and knives. I wonder what this man might have done with a semi-automatic rifle. Jesus obviously recognized the man's problem. And seeing Jesus from a distance, the man cried out with a loud voice, like the female college students shouting out their abortions, "We have the right to kill our babies." "What do I have to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God, do not torment me." This was in response to Jesus saying to him, or the unclean spirits within, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." I find the earlier references of modern-day youth destroying a Bible and targeting Christian schools and churches for violence very analogous. For who is the greatest threat to Satan and his demons but the Lord Almighty? And if you are possessed by evil spirits, who is it who torments you? Jesus asked him, again, the spirits within, "What is your name?" The answer is telling. "My name is Legion, for we are many." The man was filled with many evil spirits, which led him to do many evil things. When Jesus finally drove the spirits out of the man, the people came to Jesus and observed the man who had been demon-possessed sitting down, clothed, and in his right mind. In his right mind. The very man who had the legion and they became frightened. Later it says, he went away and began to proclaim in Decapolis what great things Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. They would, wouldn't they? Jesus recognized the man's problem as a spiritual issue, even though it presented itself as a mental issue, because it says he was in his right mind after the demons were driven from him. So if he's in his right mind now, he must have been out of his mind earlier. I have some questions. If mental health experts are not solving the problem causing today's feral, out-of-control youth, and they aren't, is the problem primarily a mental illness issue? Is mind-altering drug use, along with a spiritual void in their lives, creating a pathway for evil spirits to enter into these young people? If the culture no longer values the faith in God, what fills the void? Can Jesus solve this spiritual crisis today like he did over 2,000 years ago? Is there a correlation between a reduction in the importance of faith and an increase in these violent, suicidal, self-harming behaviors, Or can the sudden escalation be attributed solely to mental health issues? And if only mental illness is the explanation, what triggered the surge? If a young boy or girl believes they were born into the wrong body and subsequently mutilate their bodies to try to become the opposite sex, in effect, arguing with both science and God, is this a mental health issue or a spiritual issue? Or both? I have no doubt there are mental health issues involved, as with the man Jesus encountered, clothed and in his right mind. But what is the underlying cause? So, what's the problem? You've heard what I had to say, for what it's worth. So you might ask yourself, has it changed since I posted this blog post in April of 2023, over 2 years ago? The answer is it's actually gotten worse. And just some recent headlines in the last 2 or 3 weeks, or since the summer, there was a man shot and killed in public in daylight, broad daylight, who was a healthcare CEO, and the killer has become a hero to some in our culture, and they've raised tons of money to go for his defense. He's a hero for killing a CEO. Another incident: a man believing himself a woman murdered 2 children and shot 17 at a Catholic school in Minneapolis. And then another one just last week: a Christian conservative speaker and writer was assassinated for the crime of speaking the truth. Much of the left on social media cheered this murder. The truth is, evil exists. And I sometimes think we don't recognize it for what it is. We would rather explain it away with mental health issues as the cause. And we would rather prescribe drugs to see if we could solve the problem. But if it's a spiritual issue, it's going to take more than drugs to solve the problem. And if you don't believe me when I say I think it's a spiritual issue, listen to what these 2 assassins or murderers said about themselves. The Minneapolis shooter decorated his weapons with transgender expressions. His manifesto was filled with demonic imagery, and he believed he was possessed by a demon. The Covenant school shooter in Nashville, who identified as transgender, she called herself the devil's apprentice. So there is an evil in the world, and Paul actually wrote about it in the book of Ephesians. And he warns Christians what it is you're up against. And here's some verses from chapter 6 of Ephesians. Finally, be strong in the Lord and the strength of his might. Put on the full armor of God, that you may be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. The devil's behind all of this. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. So Christians need to wake up and realize what's going on in our culture. We have a spiritual issue. A void has been created because people have turned away from God, stopped going to church, stopped reading the Bible, stopped praying, and Satan has filled that void. And we see it all around us, and violence is a result of that. So thank you for joining me again today, and I look forward to next time. Have a great day.